guys, let's saddle up and get out of here.
Backcountry Discovery Routes is a nonprofit organization dedicated to establishing and preserving off-highway routes for dual sport and adventure motorcycle travel. For more information on all BDR projects, visit backcountrydiscoveryroutes.com. The Arizona Backcountry Discovery Route is a scenic ride across the state of Arizona. It's 750 miles long, runs south to north, and utilizes many remote dirt roads as it passes through iconic locations.
You really get to see a lot of Arizona and what it had to offer years ago. There's the old western stuff of Tombstone, there's the mining stuff of Bisbee, and then as we're moving up through the state, you get to see the geological forms of the Mogollon Rim, and then up near Flagstaff, the volcanoes and the volcanic action that was there. The further north we go, you won't see very many people, and it's roads that you normally wouldn't find. They're really backcountry, and it's a great route. I'm really excited about starting this route.
So we're about a week out from the Arizona Backcountry Discovery Route, so this is the time when I usually start planning, going through my checklist and start the preparations in earnest. We're filming this one a little bit earlier in the year, and that's because of the hot temperatures down in this area of the world. It can be 90 or 100 degrees in May in the southern part of Arizona, and at the same time there can be snow on the ground in the northern part of the state. And so we're doing it at the earliest opportunity where we think we can get through the snow and avoid the intense heat that you get in the summertime down south. So on this trip from Touratech, we're sending myself and the general manager and Tom Myers, who's president of the company.
Well, as usual, Paul's coming along. He's kind of acts as ringleader. He likes that position, and he does it very well.
And then from the Backcountry Discovery Routes organization, we have a new team member. Her name is Ina, and she's going to join us for the expedition. And it's going to be pretty cool because this will be the first time we've had a woman come on the trip as a rider and a part of the core team.
So in 2008, my then boyfriend and I decided to do a trip to South America. We quit our jobs, bought two Kawasaki KLR 650, and went on a trip from Seattle to end of South America in Ushuaia. Matthew proposed, and so we got married after we came back from the trip. So I actually think it was one of the most romantic proposals a girl can get.
So Ina, I think, has done the least amount of preparation for the trip. She's got a young child at home and a busy travel schedule, and she just simply hasn't put the hours on the bike that some of the others have done on the team.
I'm not the best rider out there. I don't ride every day. I have other things that I do. I'm also a mother, and I work part-time.
I'm a little bit concerned about her being fit and having the strength and the riding skills, the fresh skills to pull off the trip.
So originally I was going to take my KLR, the bike that I had on my South America trip, and just hearing how difficult the terrain is, I decided that a smaller and a lighter bike would be better for me. It's a Yamaha WR250R, and it's set up for adventure riding. So I am choosing to go with soft luggage, and I'm also going to take the top, and I think that should hold me pretty well.
So I'm excited to have a woman on the trip for a couple of reasons. Number one, because women can do this, and it's really cool to show women out doing this ride. But also when we do the movie premieres, when we release the new movie, we always get someone that raises their hand and says, how come you don't have any women in the film? And we never had a good answer to that. We just simply didn't. So I'm excited that we actually have a woman on the team. I think it's going to change the dynamic. I think it's going to add a lot to it. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think it'll be cool just to show other women, adventure motorcyclists out there, that this is something they can do.
I'm excited to be on this trip, but I'm also a little bit nervous. I've heard that the route is quite difficult. It's an intermediate level. So I've done some training, but I don't, I can't really gauge how prepared I am. So, I'm just hoping to come back in one piece and not hurt myself and hopefully have fun along the way.
To ride in Arizona, you have to get an Arizona state land permit, and with this permit, you sign an agreement stating that you will stay on the roads. The success of this route depends on people following that.
The challenge now is just to make sure I didn't forget anything. I mean, I've done this a few times before, so I've got most everything, but we've got conditions where there could be a foot of snow on the ground, and then the next day we're going to be in a hot desert.
If you're coming from out of state or even from in the state and you want to get down here and kind of get yourself staged and get ready, get those extra little supplies, a great place to stop is Go AZ.
They were exceptionally helpful, and they're very, very excited to have a trip like this through their state and to help riders out. Go to Go AZ and get your tires, get your oil, get the little parts that you need, and it's really one of the most impressive facilities I've seen. So thank you to Go AZ for helping us make this happen.
I think we have a pretty interesting group of characters on this team. We have 3 new team members. Florian, he's our embedded journalist from Roadrunner magazine, and he is from Austria. Austin Vince, who is a famous adventure rider from Britain. And myself, I'm from Moscow, Russia, so we have a pretty international crew on the AZBDR this year.
I'm Florian Neuhauser. I am a journalist for Roadrunner Motorcycle Touring and Travel magazine, and this is my first BDR. I'm quite excited to be here. I've never done such an extensive camping trip, nonetheless off-road, especially on such a huge bike. I'm riding the water-cooled 1200 GS for this trip. To get ready for this trip, it's always a little hectic for me, and even though I was in contact with all the other members of the BDR and I got the packing list ready, there's really only so much you can do to get ready. I mean, I tried to follow the list as close as possible and then decided what's really crucial and what's not. And my whole thing is pack small. If you don't really need it every day, don't even bring it.
So we have a brand new 2013 F800 GS. We're putting heavier springs and oil in the front to stiffen up the front, and then I'm putting a Touratech Extreme shock in the rear. So that's kind of the best aftermarket suspension that's available for doing backcountry discovery routes and off-road riding ready. It's already outfitted with all the crash protection, bars, skid plate, the pannier system, all of that.
On this trip, I'm riding a brand new 2013 water-cooled BMW. This bike is considerably different. It has a lot of settings, the kind of stuff I like. I have a feeling I'm going to be using the ABS off-road. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm John Beck, and I'm here to do all the still photography for the journalists and the companies that are along on this BDR.
John is the best rider that I've ever seen. Super smooth on the bike, and just beautiful rider.
From my days in the set of Encino Man, I long to ride motorcycles.
I've been on 2 BDRs before. Last year we did Colorado, and the year before that we did Utah. For me, the BDRs are both a profession and a passion. I got into this sort of whole realm of adventure riding and exploring just literally by buying a motorcycle off eBay and going and seeing what was outside of the city limits. Started shooting things, and one thing led to another, and I started shooting professionally for adventure tours just like the BDR.
We have a colleague who's been with us on all these expeditions up until now, and he couldn't make the Arizona one.
Oh,
and so for a joke, we cut out his photo, we made a little flat Bryce.
Oh my God,
But in addition
awesome.
to that, I'm having a bromance with him.
Yeah,
I see that.
Austin is in love with him, so we...
Totally.
Excellent.
In fact, I worry about any man who isn't in love with him.
Okay, are we ready to roll?
This year is a little different, that we've got someone who's a little bit more experienced on film, and that's Austin Vince. we've dealt with him before, and he kind of can't resist roasting us.
Austin is an icon of the adventure community. He has ridden around the world twice on a DR 350. So he is really hardcore, minimalist. He likes the light bikes. We're gonna learn a lot from him, and I think he's gonna have a lot of fun taking jabs at us.
When he pulled up, his helmet fell off. Inside of it were socks stuffed up like in the liner. It's like a 30-year-old helmet or older. Definitely not Snell approved, that is for sure.
The starting point is about, I would say 65, 70 miles from Tucson. There's a couple great towns to stay in. We stayed in Tombstone last night.
So what did they give you here for cleaning bugs off of your motorcycle?
Because we have this stuff called Tombstone coffee mud. And it's just water that's been filtered through old coffee grounds, and it takes the bugs right off. There's the town of Bisbee, which is a great little quirky old mining town.
Once you got to Bisbee, you might not get out. Ah, Bisbee, hippie capital of this bit of Arizona. It's an artist colony, you know. I guess you could tell, huh?
You can stay in Sierra Vista. Those are three towns that are really close. And you just kind of pick what you want to, if you want to go Old Western, then go to Tombstone. If you want to go kind of see the old mining of this area, go to down to Bisbee. So it's a great place to kind of start and stage.
We've been driving through Arizona, and suddenly we encounter this oasis of free thinking. What brings me here? Well, I come on a motorcycle trip as part of the.
You're with the.
I'm with a whole gang of motorcyclists. Yeah,
Oh,
but
nice,
without the troublesome side effects of us taking over the town and going crazy.
So what are you out after here?
Into the desert.
Oh really? Which way?
I don't know. I'm just a passenger. The other guys have got the GPS wizardry, and that's got the Arizona Backcountry Discovery Route programmed into the actual knick-knack of the doodah of the dib-dab-zip-zang, and then we follow that along. Oh, it's all science, it's science fiction, but that it's all been scouted out in advance, and we're able to follow that, and we've got our butler map, and that augments the GPS track.
Well, if you want a good taste of Bisbee, have you seen our political wall?
Is that the one down here?
Yeah.
Is that like political mural time?
Oh, did you see it?
I love the hole in the concrete wall. It looks like there's a kind of there's a Berlin Wall thaw here. Got to break out of claustrophobic, conservative, repressive America into the freedom of Bisbee.
Have fun. Don't get caught. If you get in trouble, come back. Why?
Section 1 of the Arizona BDR begins near the Mexico border and finishes 114 miles later in the town of Benson on Interstate 10 east of Tucson. The route starts at the Coronado National Memorial, located halfway between Nogales and Douglas, near the USA-Mexico border. After crossing over Montezuma Pass, the route works its way south and rides along the border for about a mile before turning north on rural roads through the Coronado National Forest, the Las Ciénegas National Conservation Area, and the historic Empire Ranch. From here, an easy alternate route bypasses a tough sandy section and takes you out to Highway 83, while the main route continues through sand and rocks to Interstate 10, ending in Benson.
Right now we're at the start of the Arizona Backcountry Discovery Route, and we picked this point down on the Mexico border, which is the Coronado National Memorial. We didn't pick it for any other reason than it's a great place to kind of start off with some great switchbacks and come up to this where we are right now, up on this hilltop where we can see Mexico in the distance and the fence, the border between the two states.
We encountered some gravel roads that were very easy, but it gave me an opportunity to kind of get back in the saddle, and my muscles were remembering how to ride, so I liked it a lot.
At the very beginning of this route, we are right along the border of Mexico and Arizona, and you read in the newspapers and you hear people say, don't go near the border, it's crazy down there. And we went down there and there were definitely Border Patrol present, but they just kind of rolled by and waved. And I thought it was going to be rough and tumble desert, you know, with bad guys running around, but it was really the opposite of that. It was, I think, a must-see place. People just have to go see how beautiful it is down there.
I'd never been along the border fence, and the fence itself is not anything like I imagined the border fence would be. I guess don't tell anybody, but you can just walk right through it.
I consider myself very well travelled in the USA. I've crisscrossed Arizona more times than I can remember. And in just our first day, once we got off the tarmac, it's just been staggering, the scenery that we've encountered. If you want amazingly difficult riding, then probably a BDR is not for you. But if you want to enjoy yourself on your dual sport bike or your adventure bike and see what you've never seen before, then this is what you should be doing.
First part kind of looked like Africa, I think, with the big tall grass, pretty quintessential Arizona desert with the cactus, and now this stuff is, I didn't even know this existed in Arizona.
I started about 2 years ago working on the route for this trip, coming down here in the wintertime and hitting the low areas, and then early in the fall and in the spring hitting the high areas before it got too hot and after the snow had melted. The southern part of the state was really difficult to try to figure out because the Border Patrol has so many of the roads closed off to provide pinch points for their security. I have felt so safe down here. I really have never seen any problems. It's a great place to come ride, and you're not really next to the border very long, so you're getting north. You know, there's cities in the United States that I wouldn't actually go into and wouldn't feel as safe as I do right here.
The first night camping was great. We had a good time, you know, having dinner and great conversation, some hilarious stories from the past BDRs. I think Rob did a good job of selecting the route, so you know, I look forward to seeing what it has to offer. Today is supposed to be a lot more difficult terrain, and we are going to encounter some sand and some big rocky hills, so we'll see how it goes. It'll be a true test of my riding abilities, and you know, I hope I can keep up with the group.
This is force field body armour. I've never worn body armour before until this year, and the word on the street was that this was the new way to go. So all of this stuff is soft rubber that's got some special scientific construction whereby it absorbs a colossal amount of potential energy or kinetic energy, you know, on impact. This morning, in the chill of Arizona, it's a bit stiff. As the day goes on and as my body heat transfers to it, it all softens up and becomes, without it sounding like a cliche, a second skin. And I've had a couple of crashes with it on in Africa, and it was just astonishing. For once, I came out unscathed. And the idea is that once you've got it on, it's not too, what's the word, when you put your normal clothes on top, it's incongruous, because I don't think there's any need to look like a spaceman when you arrive in that little Angolan village and you need help. You don't want to be putting people off with all of your big suit, everything like that. So that's why you've got to remain properly dressed. But underneath, you have a little secret.
The hardest part was the second day when we got into deep sand. For me, the biggest obstacle was my own fear.
So we just left maybe 10 minutes ago, and we just got into some what I call very deep sand.
In theory, I knew how to do it, but I guess I just didn't have enough speed build up. My front wheel just wanted to fold in, and that's why I had just my feet out and just all over the place, but I just managed to stay upright.
That was hard. They just told me it's not the hardest part of the sand, but it certainly was right here for me.
So I'm riding the 1200 GS. It's a brand new motorcycle. It's BMW's press bike, and they stated do not break it. So of course there's a little pressure that comes along with it as well. But I do have a 250 dirt bike that I go trail riding on, so it's not like I've never gone off-roading before. But a 250 and a 1200 is a completely different animal off-road.
I think that his long legs really paid dividends for him on that big bike. He was able to dab and keep that thing upright.
The one thing that we didn't really count on was the determination of these newbies.
It was tough. It was definitely tough.
They were not to be denied.
We did it twice. We turned around and did it again.
And I'm trying to give them the most basic hints about how to ride in sand that I could without scaring them to death.
My heart is pumping, you know.
They just got into the sand and they learned it and got better and better every day.
They gave me some tips. Stay on the throttle. The faster you go, the easier it is, and that's very true. It is easier.
Ina, for one, we practically tried to talk her out of it in the beginning, and in this process, seeing that she was not going to back down one bit, we realized that that's really all it takes, is determination. She was going to make it. And as soon as we saw how committed she was, we didn't worry about it at all. She's going to make it.
Yeah, I think for me, like I'm lucky because I'm on a smaller bike and I'm able to just hug it between my legs and just let the front do whatever it wants to do. It definitely helps to not have somebody in front of you, you know, and just go at a speed that you're comfortable and kind of, you know, stay on the throttle steady, and it didn't feel too bad to me, but I know that there's going to be harder sections than that.
There's going to be the gas line again. We're going to intersect that gas line.
Okay.
That's probably a good point to stop again, because then we start getting the undulating mountains.
Day number 2 was a reminder to always expect the unexpected. There was 2 options, one of which we were told was rocky slopes, that sort of thing, steep descents. The other option was supposedly an easier go-around through a valley. It turns out it was just this morass of sand and rocks, and what we added to the mix was lots of bikes flopped over on their sides. So it turned into quite a arduous journey to push through this thing. In fact, Sterling, our filmmaker, even did a whole demonstration of how to extract the bike on your own, and it was painful to watch. I mean, it's really brutal, some of the things you have to deal with out here.
The difficulty of the route is very subjective. Some guys will ride through the hardest section of this route and think it wasn't difficult, but on this route it's the steep uphill sections that have loose rock that are large in size that are just difficult. I think almost anyone is going to have a challenge with getting up those, so I think that is what makes it the hardest route.
As the day went on, it just got a little more technical riding because the hills came up and then we had a lot of rocks to deal with, and I think it took us maybe 3 hours to do 6 miles.
Then when you get to here, kind of stop, set up, start your engine, and then roll out and go right up through there.
It's going to be tough. I don't know if I can make it. We'll see.
Okay, there went my whole theory. Austin showed you the way.
I think when I was thinking about whether or not to join the BDR team on this trip, this is the kind of day that they warned me about. You know, I could see everybody going up and really like muscling their bikes, and I was just sitting there waiting for my turn and trying to muscle the courage to go up there.
For the BDR, it's so important that you don't do this by yourself. At least have 2 or 3 people on this trip. In case you have a very difficult section, one person can be on the bike and the others can be around the bike and help each other down.
Oh man, I'm huffing and puffing. Hey, TV gods, be with me.
it like you stole it.
After I did it, I felt triumphant, you know, and after that I was kind of flying. BDR is all about, you know, yes, it's about scenery and it's about camaraderie and all that, but I think a lot of it is also, you know, overcoming your fears and then feeling the triumph after accomplishing, you know, the route that you were on.
Everything was going pretty well. It was hard, but we got people through the hardest part, and then on the way out there were some water bars, and our good friend Austin Vince crashed in some loose stuff, low speed type of crash you expect to just dust yourself off and keep going, but unfortunately we think he blew out some tendons in his knee or ligaments in his knee.
Shit, sorry everyone. That wasn't even like a cool wipeout. It was entertaining or something. It was just a tiny little spill.
It's really, really easy to just tuck a front wheel or get in some loose stuff and go down and twist something, which is, I think, you know, what Austin did.
It was amazing to see how he pushed through. In spite of likely having torn ligaments, kept riding, wanted to keep going, and for practical purposes, he had to bow out.
Luckily for us, it only happened like a mile from paved road and then into town, but you know, there's certain sections of this trip where that happens and it can ruin the whole trip for everybody.
He can barely walk, can't really ride a motorcycle, so we're gutted to see him leave the trip so early. He's been so much fun and added such a good flavor to the crew. Everybody's a little bummed out, but we're going to continue on without Austin and hopefully have 5 or 6 good days left.
Today was probably one of the harder days that we'll have on the entire trip. I mean, we only went maybe 20 miles total, and it took us most of the day.
In spite of the formal nature of a BDR project, nothing ever quite goes to plan. There's so much randomness and so much exploration to be done that everyone feels like you never know quite what you're going to get into. The flip side of that is those unknowns lead to fantastic places just like we are right here. We're camping in an area that we did not intend to camp in. It's absolutely stunning.
Everyone did great. I was actually pleasantly surprised. It wasn't. It was hard. There were definitely some challenges in the sand and in the rock, but God, everyone did great. It was fun. It was really fun. It's one we'll remember, especially starting off the second day. You know, going so tough right off the bat.
That's kind of what I expected, and I'm pretty happy that I came back in one piece today. So, yeah.
Section 2 of the Arizona BDR begins east of Tucson and Benson on Interstate 10 and finishes in Globe, 134 miles to the north. The route begins on a smooth dirt road, which changes to pavement at the town of Mammoth. It quickly gets back on dirt and follows the San Pedro River until it pops out on Highway 77 north of Dudleyville. After that, it passes through Winkleman and reconnects with dirt roads leading up to Pioneer Pass. At 6,100 feet of elevation, Pioneer Pass has a chance to cool off from the heat and take in the scenic views of the Pinal Mountains. From here, it's a short distance to fuel, food, and lodging at the section's end in the town of Globe.
Today's day 3. I feel great because I slept a whole lot better.
It's day 3 and I am missing my family. Yesterday I was able to talk to them on the phone and actually do some FaceTime, and when I saw him I just started crying.
Day 3 is going to bring some really cool roads. We're going to be going up to Mammoth from where we're at our campsite. And where we're going to end up camping tonight is going to be absolutely beautiful. We get on this little 2-track and we kind of go through these trees where we're going to have to duck down a little bit and have some fun. And it's kind of fast and a little banks and stuff. The road from Winkleman to Globe, we get into some more saguaro and kind of a little more traditional of what you kind of think of Arizona, but it's mountainous.
It seemed like to me that things got progressively better in terms of the fun factor, which for me that's what the BDR is all about, is the fun factor. Finding those roads that have flow and twisties and you just get in the groove. And then like day 2 and 3 and 4, there was a lot of that where you just really get in the groove and you're sort of in tune with it. You've got the bike figured out and you can just have a lot of fun. I think that was really fun. I think this route gets progressively better as you get through it. I know Florian made a mention of that the thing just keeps getting better every day, and that was really how it felt to me.
During the day, Sterling and I have the task of essentially leapfrogging the group. We'll set up a shot somewhere, we'll get images and video, and then the group will progress and we'll advance ahead of them. So it's just a constant process of leapfrogging throughout the day and just trying to best represent the amazing terrain that we're going through.
As society becomes more industrialized, cities grow, suburbia expands, people become less aware of what exists out in the backcountry. So I think the BDRs are a good way to open that up, and even just some of the feedback I've gotten, people are blown away by what exists just outside of the city limits.
We just came from big cactus forests and yucca plants and all that, and we just climbed up this incredible road. I don't know what elevation we're at now, but it's much cooler and the topography's changed quite a bit.
Right now we're on Pioneer Pass, and this is one of the sections that defines what the BDR is all about. These are the roads that we're after, and this is what really makes it worth it.
It's a nice change. We had 90 degrees down in the valley, and now it's closer to 75.
Well, I think it's important to note that riding of the BDRs are difficult and stinky and dusty and hot, and if you can find water.
About time you showered, Bradshaw. Tired of smelling your stink.
Liquor, fuel, showers, everything right here. So good.
I'm having cinnamon granola and baby powder for breakfast.
Section 3 of the Arizona BDR begins in Globe and finishes 106 miles north on Highway 260. The route follows State Route 288, also known as the Desert to Tall Pines Scenic Road, a 76-mile-long scenic back road through the high lonesome country of Arizona. After leaving Globe, ride 15 miles north and cross the one-lane steel bridge over the Salt River. From here, the route climbs into the Sierra Ancho Mountains and enters the Tonto National Forest. The main route continues through an experts-only rocky section to the small ranching community of Young. The rocky section can be avoided by an easier alternate route. From Young, continue north to arrive at the junction of State Route 260. Congratulate yourselves on a job well done. This is a tough and isolated section, but few travelers have been fortunate enough to share.
We're on day 4 of the Arizona route, and this particular section in the morning and afternoon has been really fun. It's just twisty roads, vistas that go on forever. Probably 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 in terms of BDR character.
It was fantastic, unbelievable riding.
We left our campsite in Tonto National Forest and then just weaved away through a good section of the park. It was very challenging riding, especially on a huge bike, fully loaded.
It's just standing on the pegs all day long, wore on my feet, and the boots I had just didn't let any air in or out. I think I developed some trench foot on that day as well.
I'm a little bit surprised on how much good water we found on this trip. It's been clean, nice little streams, but when we see water, we stop there.
I think this will work.
There's really never a dull moment. I think I'm in a good group of guys.
We found water and we took advantage of it. And if you've never bathed in a river before, you should do it on a BDR because it's fantastic. You can wash your socks and underwear. I might get dysentery because I got some in my mouth. We'll learn that in the next few days.
I feel so good. We've been riding for 4 days in the dirt and we finally can take a shower. I'm ecstatic.
We didn't expect to find any water in Arizona, and then look at this. We're clean once again.
Just what the doctor ordered. Strip down and jump in and get cleaned up after a sweaty day.
Managing chafe. It's a very important aspect of adventure riding. My favorite way to do it is the dump and shake. Gets into the proper places.
He was talking about his process called the dump and shake.
Chafing is a serious issue, especially on the Arizona BDR.
Girls get monkey butt too. I feel like a little sister to all these guys. I think I'm in good hands, and I'm looking forward to continuing this journey, hopefully to the end.
So here we are on the Arizona Backcountry Discovery Route. John Beck lost a bolt in his pannier frame, so we've been digging around trying to find some spare bolts. We couldn't locate any, so we've taken a ram arm off of Ina's bike. Her GPS was not being used anyway, so we're borrowing a ram arm. We're going to take the bolt out, and because the bolt's too long, we're going to use this part of it as a spacer, and we're going to fix it using what we have.
Having these panniers loaded up kind of heavy like this, the vibration rolling down the trail, just the constant shaking, loosened up a bolt. And the bolt through the center of the ram mount was the perfect size, so took that and rigged up some spacers, and now I have an extra camera mounting point on the bike.
Good to go. We're entering the Tonto National Forest right now, and we're kind of coming up into a canyon area, and there's a sign here that's mentioning cliff dwellings from Indians that date back to 1280. So quite old stuff. We haven't seen any yet, but something to keep our eyes out as we cut through the canyon here.
The section between Globe and Young was the most challenging for me. The road just turned into a goat path. It's just non-stop with the rocks and the curves and just huge rocks and boulders to go over, really all over the place.
Recently we took a turn and we're on a much smaller road, and it's pretty rocky and technical, so we're all feeling like this, if we keep it, it's going to be an expert-only section.
It was long. It seemed like one of the longer sections from pavement to pavement that we've done on a BDR. I don't know what the mileage was, but it felt long. The roads were difficult for sure. I think that they challenged a lot of the people on the team.
There were a few sections that were very steep downhill and very rocky. And sometimes it seemed the road just ended in a riverbed, so we had to go along a riverbed over pretty good sized boulders. I mean, they looked like baby heads. It was by far the most challenging ride I have ever done in my life.
You know, if I had any doubt about my riding abilities, I think I proved to myself yesterday that I have some dual sport riding skill for sure.
Whenever we got to the skinnier road, the skinnier and rougher it is, Ina wanted to be in the front. The only thing she didn't have was the route. Otherwise, she would have been in the front.
Some sections were difficult, and if you fall down, you know, you're already tired, and it's good to have somebody help you pick up the bike and kind of encourage you to keep going. It's also good to see that everybody else is just as tired as you. But I think teamwork is kind of part of the spirit of BDR. Everybody is looking out for each other, and I kind of gave myself a pat on the back for completing every section.
I did happen to see several times she dropped the bike, and I know from past experience that really wears you out. And to do that 8 days straight in a hot desert on a trip like this, that may be the first of its kind, and pull through it like she did, is amazing.
Arizona is not unique in itself, but it has sharp rocks. There are a lot of rocks that you can ride over, and a lot of them have pointed edges. You're going to get flat tires, and I think we had, between all of us, 5 or 6 flat tires. You really do need to prepare yourself for this trip, thinking about where you're going and knowing that there's not always going to be someone there to help you.
You're the Ren to my Stimpy, Rob.
Oh, did I get that on your brakes? God, I'm sorry.
Section 4 of the Arizona BDR begins on State Route 260 east of Payson. The route lies entirely within the Coconino National Forest and crosses the Mogollon Mesa, a defining feature of the state of Arizona. From the Mogollon Rim Visitors Center, the route follows Forest Road 300, the Rim Road, west before turning north onto the plateau, a boundary between the cool high country and the burning deserts below. A steep descent is near the end of the section before reaching Interstate 40 at Winona. The Mogollon Rim is a rugged escarpment that forms the southern limit of the Colorado Plateau. The rim provides some of the most far-reaching views in the entire state, dropping as much as 2,000 feet in elevation in some areas. From the Visitor Center, a dirt road winds through thick stands of ponderosa pines, before suddenly opening to a pasture of stripped poles standing bare. More than a decade ago, these trees were burned in a lightning-sparked forest fire.
It seemed like the landscapes changed almost every hour. There was so much variety of plants, the rocks, the elevation changes. There are some sections on this that people just have to do, that you just have to see it for your own eyes to believe that it exists.
Arizona has exceeded my expectations. I thought it was just going to be desert and sagebrush and maybe a saguaro cactus or something, but it's just been incredible. There's pine trees and rivers, water, and one thing that I liked a lot about it was that it was so remote. We didn't stay in a single motel.
I had a jamtastrophe in my pannier and it's a mess. Yeah, that sucks. I thought I had patted it. It was in between all of my saw stuff, and now it's all over my saw stuff. So 5th day on the road, Arizona BDR, and we've set up our cooking table for the evening, and we were just going to go through kind of the different ways that you can feed yourself on a BDR. Of course, you can go as simple as you want and bring dehydrated food, but it's also really simple to bring everything you need to cook an awesome meal like this and put it all in a small bag. All of the stuff you see on this table took up about half of one of my panniers, and we're going to use it all.
So tonight for dinner we're having mac and cheese. I actually brought this from home, but this is something you can pick up at any convenience store. We picked up veggies at a gas station, so we're going to make salad with some garlic salt, lime, and olive oil, and then brats were also from the gas station. We're going to fry those and put them in mac and cheese, and I think it's going to be a great meal tonight.
Boiling water on the trail can actually be quite a pain in the butt. This thing is called a reactor, and it gets the job done really, really efficiently. So there's other brands besides this MSR one, like JetBoil. This one seems to work exceptionally well and has done us right on quite a few BDRs now. We make coffee with it in the morning in about 30 seconds, so it's awesome. So we're gonna boil the water there first just to get going, and then transfer it into a pot to make the noodles. Also, we lucked out with this rock tonight, but this little table from GSI folds up really small and makes an awesome surface for camping. We've used this every night so far, and we've just been sitting in the dirt, and it allows you to keep your stuff out of the dirt and stay a little more organized. So one of the things you really do need to pay attention to when motorcycle camping, just like backpacking, is the weight and the space. And if you're smart and efficient about it, you can actually get a whole lot of stuff in a very small space.
These are great. They're made of aluminum and they're super light. I carry them with me all the time, and you can hold them together like that so you never lose them.
Obviously there's some foods that you can bring and have in your pannier for days and they'll be fine, and there's others that aren't. The sausages we just picked up today, and they're good for about a day. Meat and vegetables, if you can find a place to get meat and vegetables somewhere during the day, it makes for a very pleasant meal. So I got the water boiling quickly with our reactor just to speed the process, but these little stoves are really handy because they pack into just about nothing and they just screw on.
So this is a very simple dressing, olive oil, garlic salt, and a squeeze of lime, and it's amazing.
Good stuff.
We're approximately due east of Flagstaff, and the area that we're riding through this morning is forested and then kind of this open grassland that you can see behind me. So this ride is going through different zones of the state. We're at about 6,700 foot elevation right now. So we're up in the high country, but it's an absolutely beautiful day right now for discovering this part of Arizona.
Florian absolutely crushed it out here. We put him on the water-cooled R1200 GS. It's the biggest bike, and the first couple of days you could tell he was getting used to it, but by the end of the trip he was just flying on that thing. He is a very good rider. I think he dropped his bike fewer times than anyone else on the trip.
In the beginning, I really thought that the 1200 would be too much for a trip like this, but today I came to the conclusion that it's really not. It's all about how you ride it, and it just takes a couple of days getting used to, but it's a fantastic motorcycle. I had zero issues with it. I was lucky enough to have no flat tires and generally no issues with it at all.
I felt like Florian and I were like brother and sister. We were the newbies on the team, and I was amazed at how good he rode. You know, I think at the beginning he was a little bit more conservative, and I'm amazed that he hasn't dropped his bike once on this trip. You know, considering we have some veteran riders who've dropped their bikes, and Florian really impressed me.
And I thought he was just a street rider, but he took to this really well.
Section 5 of the Arizona BDR begins east of Flagstaff and Winona on Interstate 40 and finishes north of Flagstaff and Cameron on Highway 89. It begins traveling off pavement right away with views of the San Francisco volcano field to the north. The route passes to the east of Sunset Crater Volcano National Monument, riding on lava sand roads, before turning west and crossing Interstate 89 north of Flagstaff. After leaving the Coconino National Forest, the route enters the Kaibab National Forest, which borders the north and south rims of the Grand Canyon. An alternate easy route goes to Grandview Point, before returning to the main route. From here, it's 24 miles back to the pavement of Highway 89 and the section end in Cameron.
We stayed in 0 hotels on this trip. It was really pretty long to be out there without a shower. We didn't eat in any restaurants. We really were doing the backcountry thing, camping and cooking, and we had a lot of fun, but no hotels, no showers on this route. Typically we design a BDR route so that guys can stay in hotels and eat in restaurants if possible. This route, it was just really tough. It's just very remote out there. There are not a lot of towns. Just getting gas and water is a big enough challenge, but for most guys, I don't think you're gonna be able to string this route together where you're gonna stay in hotels every night. I think it's just not possible.
These hills in the distance are part of the San Francisco volcano field, an area that contains 600 volcanoes. Some of them are less than 1,000 years old. Almost all of the hills and mountains between Flagstaff and the Grand Canyon are extinct volcanoes. Without them, this region would be a flat, arid plateau. Instead, the area includes both Arizona's highest mountain and the state's youngest volcano, Sunset Crater, a classic example of a cinder cone. Sunset Crater Volcano National Monument is a protected area of more than 3,000 acres located within the Coconino National Forest. It's been a national monument since 1930. The landscape is covered by lava flows and deep volcanic cinder deposits.
Well, I never thought I'd be able to say that there are sand whoops on a BDR, but we just went through a few miles of this volcanic sand. It's pretty coarse, and there were sand whoops for a couple of miles. It was a lot of fun, but definitely different than I expected.
These cinders here are a little easier to ride in than sand. It seems like they have somewhat of a bottom, so if you start going sideways and dig in a little bit, it has some traction and you can get out of it. And one thing I've been doing is I keep it in first gear and keep the revs a little bit higher, and I get a little bit more stability out of that from the rotational inertia of the engine.
Initially, I was a little bit intimidated, and I was going really slow and keeping my feet on the ground, but then I realized it's actually better to go in second gear and actually going a little fast and stand up and let the bike just move underneath me. And once I figured that out, I was actually having a lot of fun and kind of really conquering the terrain. So yeah, I'm enjoying riding the sand. I never thought I would say that.
Eventually we're going to end up on that mesa over there, which is where the Grand Canyon is beyond that, and then we drop down that cliff that you can see in that far distance.
All right, guys, let's saddle up and get out of here.
Well, I'm going to experiment and see if this water-cooled bike is warm enough to cook a burrito on the engine.
Tom, he is by far the most experienced camper on this trip, I'm sure.
I stopped at a store and bought a burrito, wrapped it in tin foil, and I put it on the engine here to warm it up.
He really knows how to fix up anything on the road.
It's nice and warm. Perfectly warm from a water-cooled motorcycle.
Okay, we're at the Grand View Overlook at the Grand Canyon. It's a popular stop for most of the tourists. It's kind of a excursion part of the Arizona Backcountry Discovery Route. Just as a, if you've never been here, or even if you've been here before, it's just a little kind of a side shoot for you to kind of come and enjoy the beauty like we have. And smell the clean people.
Section 6 of the Arizona BDR begins north of Flagstaff and Cameron and finishes at the Utah border. After picking up a Navajo Parks and Recreation travel permit, the route heads west into the Navajo Reservation. Remember to respect the privacy and lands of the Navajo people by not traveling off the dirt roads. There aren't any fences in the Navajo Nation, so watch out for animals, and bear in mind that several areas are impassable when wet. At 88 miles, the route returns to pavement, traveling west through the town of Marble Canyon, before turning north next to the Vermilion Cliffs National Monument. From here, it's a straight ride north to the Utah border and the conclusion of the Arizona BDR. If you've made it this far, congratulate yourselves on a job well done. You've seen many parts of Arizona that few people have seen.
All right, everyone needs their license plate numbers. They're going to need that, and you need cash.
The Navajo Nation was a neat experience for me, and all of that is out there to enjoy if you follow the rules and you get the proper permits to do it.
How much is it? 15 each?
15 each.
Okay.
All right.
And you can't go off the road, you gotta stay on the road.
Right, stay, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Inside our country, I've always been curious, but it's just a big brown spot on a map, and there's no information there. You see the national park that's adjacent to it, it's green, it means there's forest, and right next to it, a completely brown big rectangle on the map. What comes with that is a responsibility to treat it like it's someone else's country, even though it's within our own country.
When you're out there for just hours and hours, you don't see any fences, you don't see any cattle guards, there are no really ranch houses or much out there. There's very small Navajo dwellings, but they're very sparse. It was like the true Wild West was. I mean, there's a few roads through, but really nothing else out there. It was pretty magical.
We saw herds of wild horses out there, you know, and we thought that they were wild. But in talking to some Navajo people, we find that they're out there looking wild, but someone owns those horses. And just because there's no gates and fences doesn't mean that they're completely wild. And going into it this time was just incredible. We rode right up to the edge of these huge, deep canyons, rode right up to the edge of the Grand Canyon.
The canyons were amazing. I mean, certainly the Grand Canyon, most people have seen that, or a lot of people have, but we saw some other canyons that were similar, but they were just so remote. We were in a place where there was just no civilization anywhere around, and just these amazing vistas and steep sheer cliffs that were just this brilliant red. It was neat.
This has got to be one of the coolest BDR campsites ever, ever, ever.
I've been working on this thing for 2 years, and now the ride that I've been looking forward to is almost over. The fun that we have with all of us together and just doing the route, you know. I'm gonna go home and sleep in my tent in the backyard for a couple days just to get used to real life again.
King and sunsets. Nice camp spot.
Camping on the ledge was fantastic until the sun went down and the wind picked up, and then it turned into a little bit of a nightmare.
Well, you can see this or hear this, but I'm getting absolutely hammered.
The wind was like nothing I've ever experienced. It comes whipping out of this canyon and then just throws everything in the camp around, and it was brutal. Everybody's tents were just flapping like a paper bag, and I felt like I was sleeping inside a grocery bag.
Tents were folded over, roll pads were disappearing. Most of us were breaking down our tent, at least partially, just to kind of get through the night, because the tents were hitting us in the head. I've never had a tent completely fold over from wind where it's pinning me to the ground the way it was. It was definitely not a situation where you got much sleep.
My God.
Rock and roll. I feel haggard.
I thought we had died and gone to heaven, and then in the middle of the night, it was the opposite of that.
My tent pulled up, so I decided I should sleep on top of my tent instead of in my tent. And a couple hours after that, my pad went flat, so I lifted my head up to put air in my pad, and my pillow blew away into the desert. So I hopped around in my sleeping bag and got my pillow, and when I did that, my pad blew away into the desert on the edge of the cliff. So I dropped my sleeping bag so I could run faster, and I couldn't find my shoes, and I grabbed my sleeping bag, but I was naked. So I was running around the desert about 2 a.m. naked. But the good news is that this morning I went on a hunt for my pad, and I have found it in a crevice about 30 feet down the side of this canyon, and I'm going to get it. Success. Yes. I cannot believe that I found it. Ah. I smell like a used buffalo nickel. Is that a thing? I don't even know if that's a thing. I don't know if it's a thing. That's what I smell like. Horrible.
Things are okay now. I got a cup of coffee, and the wind's not so bad, and it's a beautiful morning.
Feels good to have number 4 in the books. It's been incredible being on this trip, and now that I've experienced it, it's time for me to get to work and produce something for the rest of the community to get their butts out here and try it themselves. Because we don't want just people in the U.S. to come ride these. We want people all over the world to see the United States as a motorcycle destination, see adventure riding as the tool to do it.
All this remoteness and all this vast, incredible terrain exists literally just in your backyard.
I feel like I've been on a hero's journey. I had to overcome a lot of fears, and I think, but in the end, you know, I came out a better rider. I think a stronger woman, and probably more loving, more loving wife, and a more compassionate mother.
It's a special time, so get yourself some friends, and if you don't have any already, but go get some other new riding buddies and go do a route like this, because it will be something you will remember for the rest of your life.
And thus we bid goodbye to the great state of Arizona and head off into the sunset.
Hi, I'm John, and today I'm here to talk to you about adventure riding. Oh boy. And never poop in the river either, despite how inviting it is. Well, there was a bottle of wild turkey that did its job appropriately.
Wow! How did that happen?
Gotta love finding water in the desert.
I just walk out and get it off the shelf, but I have to remember to write up an invoice or I'm going to get in big trouble from the warehouse manager.
I decided to bring these pants along because my girlfriend Sarah never lets me wear these at home, and they are by far the most comfortable camping pants.
I'm having a hell of a time riding the 1200 GS, but I think today I made it, my bitch. Today is the day.
I think I'm getting some of the BDR trench foot here.
Steak bazooka. Okay, George.
Who wants to bail his ass out? $10.
Bail his ass out.
That sounds like a euphemism for just some boys' fun.
There's no more deep sand. There's no more deep sand. There's no more deep sand.
Oh, the monkey butt shuffle.
It's Long's Lake. It's Long's Lake.
Is there an S on it? Is it
We're-
Long's Lake
we're
or
in
Long
Long
Lake?
Lake. It's Long's Lake.
Long Lake.
Long Lake, god damn it. It's Long's Lake. Long Lake.
Fuck, you're fired. Let's talk to Bradshaw.
Gonna take a snack now, and we're gonna. Fuck. Don't let me do it. I'm all screwed up.